particular project, the Atlee Station Road Widening Phase 2. I'd like to start out by mentioning that the reason why we're here at Hanover High School this evening is because of a conflict Atlee High School had with, I'm not sure if a show choir or a school play, but they had their, I don't know if it was a final dress rehearsal or the actual play itself this evening. So when we ran into that roadblock 3 weeks ago, is either rescheduling and trying to get all the cats herded, but that's like trying to get everyone to agree on a date. So since we had a date in mind, we looked around for different facilities, and it's either a cafeteria or this wonderful auditorium that Hanover High School has provided for us. So we chose Plan B, the high school auditorium, where you all be comfortable, and you could hear better, and we're able to better record the presentation and take questions and comments and that kind of thing. So I appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy schedules to come out this evening. This meeting is being recorded, and all the exhibits and links to this presentation will be available on the county's website probably in the next couple of days. So feel free to, if you missed something, go to our county website. It's your government, public works, roads, and then you can scroll down to the Atlee Station Road Widening Phase 2, and we'll have different displays on there for you all to look at and provide comments, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to start out by introducing the board members in attendance. We have Madam Chair Angela Kelly-Wiesek. No, in a second. We also represent board chair representing the Chickahominy District, and Ms. Faye Pritchard from the Ashland District. We have Mr. Whitaker there in the back, Planning Commissioner for Mechanicsville. Then we have Mr. Steve Hadro, Planning Commissioner for Chickahominy. As Ms. Angela Kelly-Wiesek, if she'd like to have a couple comments or make a couple comments, so she has the floor here for a minute.
Just very briefly, I just wanted to welcome everyone on behalf of Ms. Pritchard and myself. We want to thank you for coming out. We want to re-emphasize that this is a meeting designed not just for us to give you something to look at and consider, but it is an opportunity for us all to talk about what we like, what we don't like. It is definitely designed for us to give you information, but also to receive feedback from you. So that is very, very important at this stage. And so I encourage you not only to make good use of the comment cards. As a matter of fact, I put some you should be able to pick up on your way in. There are extra cards over here on this table. There are also cards back actually in front of Mr. Whitaker, Mr. Hadra, that you can use again to write your questions. And then there will be opportunities ongoing to provide feedback, and you may do that by emailing Faye. You can email me. You can email the county directly. You can email the county directly and copy both of us, whatever makes sense for you. And we are also widely available via text and cell phone, and both of us have that information for you if you'd like to see us before we leave tonight. So again, thank you for coming. We're glad that you are here. Please give good feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. The main purpose for tonight's meeting is, as Ms. Wiesek had said, is to hear from you all, and I appreciate people taking time out of their schedules again to be out here. It's the 4th, so may the 4th be with you all. I also wanted to focus on the fact that we're in very early stages of development. At this point, we call it a 10% meeting, so we basically collected our survey, our ground utility locations, et cetera, and what we have here is, at this point, the best fit for the information we've been able to compile it to this point. Through good past planning efforts, much of the right-of-way needed to widen the road has been preserved, as you'll see here in a minute. However, there are some properties where additional right-of-way will be needed, and we have some areas where we can denote those additional right-of-way needs, but there will also be some additional needs for basins and some other facilities, utilities that we haven't been able to identify yet. So what we have currently is just 10%. We're doing our best to stick with what we have, but please keep in mind that it may change a little bit. That said, we have a responsibility to the road improvements and the traveling public. We will provide a safe and functional corridor, roadway to serve the traveling public, as well as bicyclists and pedestrians, and those are the facilities we have planned for the next 20 plus years as our design horizon. We'll do our best to limit impacts to the property owners, that we know there will be impacts which may not appear to be equitable due to a multitude of considerations. Lastly, in addition to physical constraints, we have a fiscal responsibility to be prudent in the expenditure of public funding, which is financing the project. So there's some additional constraints with the funding based on our project. I'll go to slide 2. Here's the overall project limits. You'll notice that the widening, the physical widening is from Warren Avenue to Kings Charter Drive. Project involves widening from 2 to 4 lanes between those two intersections, Warren Avenue and Kings Charter Drive. The purpose of the project, which of course we all have to come up with and address it very early stages, is to address the increasing traffic in the corridor provided by planned growth, enhance the safety along the corridor, provide for travel reliability, and improve bicycle and pedestrian accommodations through the corridor. The project will also address the safety, pedestrian, and operational concerns at the Kings Charter and high school entrance intersections through the use of innovative intersection alternatives. This section of Atlee Road has an existing average daily traffic of about 11,000 vehicles a day, and we expect this volume to grow to about 15,000 vehicles per day in 2050, which is our design. Here is some additional engineering information we use to look at the different intersections. This is a map of all the different accidents, crashes that occurred in the last 7 years. There's a total of 35 accidents. Of course, the accident crash data goes up and down through the 7 different years, but here's a layout of the different accidents through the corridor. Each of the circles represents a crash. The project will include several measures, such as the addition of medians, turn lanes, special intersection treatment called a continuous grade T at the Kings Charter Drive entrance, and a roundabout near the high school, and accommodations for bicycles and pedestrians, which should help reduce the number of crashes through the corridor. Roundabouts and raised medians to control vehicular access are proven measures to reduce crashes, and specifically serious crashes. Next, we'll take a look at the typical section for the project. The typical section includes 2 11-foot lanes in each direction, separated by a 15-foot raised grass median with curbing on both sides, curb and gutter on the outside lanes, a 10-foot multi-use path on the east side, and a 5-foot sidewalk on the west side to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists. We're still exploring the possibility of utilizing some of the existing sidewalk that meanders out there today to complete the sidewalk corridor through this area, but there's still some questions whether or not we can necessarily use the existing, and we want to get some feedback from the public as to whether or not we want to utilize the existing meandering or have a consistent 5-foot sidewalk adjacent to the roadway. Next, we'll take a look at the existing segment 1. Notice the blue lines here. They may be a little hard to see, but the blue represents the existing right-of-way for this corridor. So you can see that there's a fairly wide corridor existing already from here to there. The red does represent the additional needs that we have identified to this point. Some needs along Berry Pond and some widening there to the east. Here we've overlaid the proposed design on top of the area. One thing to note here is the innovative continuous green T at Kings Charter Drive entrance. That's in this area right here. And what the continuous green T comprises is you have the accelerator, the dedicated turn lane here, which folks turning left out of Kings Charter, heading south on Atlee Station Road will utilize. They can accelerate in this lane, free from the existing 2 lanes heading southbound. Then they would merge at a point upstream of traffic once they're able to get some speed, get up to speed. This form of innovative intersection will improve the level of safety and operations at this intersection by eliminating points of conflict that the left-turn motorists need to deal with. The continuous green T does have an impact on the Berry Pond Lane access, which is across Atlee Station Road from Kings Charter Drive. In order to make this continuous green T function, left turns from Berry Pond need to be moved slightly north to the Forest Patch intersection. So what we're proposing to do is make the existing Berry path a right-in, right-out only, and folks wanting to make a left out of Berry path or left from Atlee Station Road northbound onto Berry Pond, not Berry path, Berry Pond, they need to utilize the next intersection, Forest Patch intersection. One of the other big challenges for this project, or for residential properties that have driveways connecting to Atlee Station Road directly, is the inability to make left turns out of their driveways with the raised median. While we acknowledge that this will be an inconvenience for some, having a median will help with traffic flow and improve safety, which are the main objectives of the project. There will be opportunities to make U-turns along the corridor, which I will point out as we go through. The other thing is I want to make note here also is the typical section for the project ends at Kings Charter Drive, so that's where our 4 lanes with a raised median ends. And then we transition from Kings Charter back to Forest Patch and transition from the 4 lanes to the existing 2 lanes. And then the idea is when the phase 3 widening comes along, and it's proposed at 3 years now, that's when the funding becomes available, that they may change what to it depending upon what happens between now and 2027, which none of us can really predict. That would take the widening from Kings Charter all the way up to Kings Acres, which we're calling phase 3. Next slide shows the existing lay of the land for the next segment in the area of Crescent View Drive. Again, take notice of the blue represents the existing right-of-way, and the red represents the slivers of right-of-way that we have identified to this point that we'll need to accomplish the widening that we want to do. Here's the proposed design, again overlaid on the area. Again, the big changes we made here, big improvements, is we flattened out this curve right here, just north of Crescent View, and that will help with the sight distance and also an easier curve to navigate when you're driving through the corridor. The existing sidewalk segment we're proposing to utilize just north of Crescent View, and then here we're showing the new concrete sidewalk segment just south of Crescent View, which will fill in the gap from Crescent View down to the next intersection. Next slide shows the existing and proposed right-of-way takes at this point. Again, we have a nice wide corridor that we're able to utilize through good planning efforts by the county. The red is what we're proposing at this point to need to build our improvements. Here's our proposed design overlaid on the area. The other thing to note here is there's some existing sidewalk segments we're utilizing and some proposed sidewalk segments we need to construct to quote fill in the gaps. And we're putting back left turn and right turn lanes where the engineering data shows that we need left and right turn lanes. Next slide shows the segment in front of, well, Honey Meadows, I guess, is the main intersection there in front of the middle school there to your right. You can notice the blue lines are the existing right-of-way, and the red is the proposed right-of-way. All right, here's the proposed design. A couple things to make note of here. The existing intersection with Karsten is currently a right-in, right-out, and it will continue to function as a right-in, right-out movement only. The signal Honey Meadow will remain, and the configuration of lanes at the signal will not change. Pedestrian access to the segment will consist of existing meandering sidewalk and newly constructed sidewalk segments. Widening is fairly even on both sides of the roadway through this segment. The design provides for a dedicated southbound left into the middle school, which is currently a full access crossover. Notice the project does provide a bulb out just on the opposite side of Honey Meadow for folks making a left turn lane at that, or I'm sorry, U-turn at that intersection. Again, U-turns are a necessity when installing medians, concrete medians, to control the access and improve the safety through the corridor. And the reason for this bulb out is currently that is a full access in front of the middle school there, so anybody that wants to make a left out of the middle school after the project is built will need to make a right, come to the Honey Meadows intersection, and make that U-turn there. It will be a protected U-turn at the signal, so we feel that it's a much safer movement for vehicles leaving the middle school than what currently exists. All right, then here's the existing for the final segment that we're going to take a look at. This is the segment from the middle school and high school. Again, the blue is the existing right-of-way, and the red encompasses or tries to identify, to the best of our knowledge, what we'll need for right-of-way to construct the improvements. Atlee Station Road. All right, there's a lot going on in this next section. All the widening is to the east, which is the school side of the roadway, to take advantage of existing right-of-way. We continue to show the multi-use path on the east side and the sidewalk on the west side. In front of the middle school, a wide shoulder is maintained to provide temporary parking for dropping off, picking up with students, as we currently have out there today. So we identified that as a need, and as of now, it's still in the design. We feel it's a good part of the design. A dedicated left turn is being provided for southbound buses to turn left into the bus loop. 2 lanes will serve vehicles exiting the school campus in front of the high school, and 1 lane will continue to serve cars entering the complex, which basically mimics the existing condition. We're also providing a northbound left turn lane onto Warren Avenue. You can see that in this little picture here. There's currently enough asphalt to allow us to just go out there, and this is basically a restriping exercise. But we feel like since we're out there, we identified this as a need that we need to make this movement safer for the folks turning into or onto Warren Avenue. All right, design considerations. I know this may be one of the most interesting features of that we're proposing for the corridor. It's we refer to this as a hybrid turbo roundabout design. What's different about this roundabout compared to others maybe in the area is the veins that we have shown here. And the purpose of these veins is to make sure that people maintain their lanes when they're navigating the circular portion of the roundabout. Whenever you have 2 lanes that are circulating in either quadrants, you always have the potential for someone to say, oops, I need to get to that lane next to me. Well, this here will keep that movement from happening, and experts have found that a lot of times that's the movement that causes the crashes in roundabouts. It's not really the entry, it's that they're circulating from multi-lane roundabouts. So the vein will basically consist of striping with potentially like a pavement marker in the middle of it there. So you can physically make the movement, but be uncomfortable, and it's just to emphasize the fact that you need to stay in your lane when you're navigating around it, circulating around it. But all the movements are provided. Left turns, vehicles will take this inside lane here, circulate around and turn left into the school facility. Same way left turns here, will take this movement there, and this will accommodate the through movement, left movement, or if they need to make a U-turn, just continue right around and make the U-turn. Roundabouts typically work really well with raised median corridors due to the fact they allow for protected U-turns and a real simple, easy to use U-turn. That's typically the concern most folks have with raised median corridors is how do I make those left turns and U-turns. Now to address the issue of roundabouts near high schools, I did a little digging, and with the help of some folks over at VDOT, we've identified Cloverhill High School in Chesterfield County. They built this roundabout back in 2011. It serves Swift Creek, I think it's elementary school, on the bottom left of the picture here on the left-hand side, and the high school there is on the upper right-hand side. I actually have a short video I'll show you all after I finish the slides on the presentation. And the roundabout on the right side of the screen depicts the Ridgeview High School and middle schools in Dickinson County. And that was built again about 10, 12 years ago. But they both serve pedestrians, not so much on the Ridgeview High, but a high percentage of buses also utilize that roundabout. And the feedback I've gotten from at least Cloverhill High School is they used to have a police that would work the intersections during the peak school hours in the morning and the afternoon. And my understanding is they no longer need police out there because it functions so well with the school buses and the children that they don't need the police out there anymore directing traffic. One thing I do want to mention, sorry about that, I forgot to point it out, but typically roundabouts are very, very safe for pedestrians, and I'll point out why. For pedestrians trying to make that cross, they basically only have to look one direction to make this first crossing, and then once they get to what we call a refuge island here, they can stop and wait for gaps coming out of the roundabout so they can cross this other stream of traffic, again, looking in one direction. And the other thing that's proposed for this roundabout is to use the flashing beacons like you see in Ashland, where you push the button and you have signal that comes on telling cars, hey, stop. There's pedestrians wanting to cross, pedestrians or bicyclists, and there's no physical barrier to protect those folks crossing, but at least it's something to signal to the automobiles and the vehicles that, hey, you need to stop and take caution. Someone's wanting to cross the road out there. All right, back to them now. Everybody likes to know what the costs and budgets are for the projects. Plan and development, we have $2.5 million. Right-of-way utility relocation, about $6.5 million. And construction, about $22.5 million, for a total of, in ballpark, $31.5 million, our best guess at this time. But again, it's a best guess, and we're going to do our best to stay within budget or, slightly under. Schedule, we began the design in October of 2021. This is our citizens information meeting, May of 22. 30% design, probably sometime in the fall. Public hearing, we're hoping, or shooting for the middle of next year, summer of next year, 2023. Begin right-of-way acquisition, spring of 24. Begin our utility relocation in the winter of 2025. Begin construction of summer of 27, and hopefully we're done by fall, winter of 2028. So I know it's a long way off, but it'll probably be here a lot quicker than what a lot of us think. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Good comment. Okay, so we have a planning level cost for the project. As far as where's the money coming from, we have $10.8 million in federal money for the project. We got secondary funds, $350,000. That's not much. Revenue sharing, $8 million. So the county was able to go out and leverage our money by getting $8 million of revenue sharing for the project. Then proffers, we have $7.6 million of proffers that we collected over the years for the project. And CBTA funding, which is the new tax districting, we're getting $4.8 million from that pot of money. So the county is really focusing on being able to leverage the money that the taxpayers of Hanover County put in, and we're trying to get the most funding we can out of different pots of money to put against the project, and hopefully that the aim is to build more projects, or as many projects as we can for the citizens of Hanover County. All right, if you give me 1 second here, I'll put a quick video on.
The Virginia General Assembly in 2003 passed a resolution encouraging VDOT to construct more roundabouts instead of signalized intersections. Therefore, it is VDOT policy that roundabouts be considered when a project includes reconstructing or constructing new intersections. When the analysis shows that a roundabout is a feasible alternative, it should be considered the department's preferred alternative due to the proven substantial safety and operational benefits. In 2010, this intersection in Chesterfield County was improved to add the fourth leg to access a new high school. It remained an unsignalized four-leg intersection. Police officers were used to direct traffic in the morning and afternoon due to the additional buses going to and from the high school. This modern single-lane roundabout in Chesterfield County was open to traffic in 2011. The average traffic using the intersection in 2008 was 12,400 vehicles per day. The average traffic in 2030 is projected to be 17,700 vehicles per day. Previously, this was an unsignalized four-leg intersection. A roundabout was selected as the intersection alternative due to increased safety and efficiency. This roundabout reduces the delay due to left-turning vehicles and the high volume of school buses from the middle school and high school. This video demonstrates that roundabouts can be designed to successfully accommodate school buses and fire trucks, as well as pedestrians. This is a drive-through of the roundabout. This modern single-lane
There's one more thing I wanted to point out, make note of before I conclude my presentation. When we first started taking a look at the King's Charter and school entrance intersections, we performed what they call a signal justification report, an SJR, and VDOT utilizes these reports to determine whether or not signal is appropriate and or any other type of intersection control, what different options or alternatives would work for that specific intersection based upon the traffic movements, the volume of each movement, and basically kind of a lane configuration that may accompany or pertain to each of the different intersections. I'll mention that both intersections, the signal justification report came up with signal not justified or signal not warranted. Therefore, in essence, it sort of pulls the signal alternative off the table as far as potential intersection controls for each of the two intersections. So that's step one of trying to determine best appropriate control for each of the two intersections. So second, we took a look at alternative or conventional improvements, which typically consists of left and right turn lanes for each of the two intersections. And the design team came up with levels of operation, levels of service, and then we looked at any and all alternative intersections that we could sort of throw against the wall and see what stuck and what did not. In both cases, the continuous T, green T, at the King's Charter Drive intersection and the roundabout here at the entrance to the high school, the roundabout is far superior in both operations and safety due to the fact that conventional improvements, you still have stop control or stop sign control at the high school, which means anyone turning left has to try finding gaps, not just in one lane of traffic each direction, but 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. So the challenge just became a little harder for that particular movement, as well as vehicles traveling southbound on Atlee Station Road trying to go left into the high school. Now they're trying to cross 2 lanes of traffic, not just 1 lane of traffic. So in both intersections, the alternative, innovative intersections basically operate much better than the conventional improvements, and levels of safety are much higher in the alternative intersection controls than conventional. So I just want to make note of that for anybody that may have a question, how do we come up with these two alternatives? That concludes my presentation. I'll turn it over to Mr. Flagg for any questions, comments, and those questions or comments we'd like to receive in those cards. So if you have any questions or comments written down, please let us know. We'll gladly come around and collect those, and we can sort of address those comments.
Thank you, Terry, and good evening, everyone. As Terry said, my name is Mike Flagg. I'm the Director of Public Works for Hanover County and part of the road program team. I wanted to go back a minute and talk about the inception of the project a little bit, but for years we've looked for opportunities and funding to fund the Atlee Station corridor widening to 4 lanes. And fortunately, for the first time in many years now, we have the funding to move forward with that, but it is broken into phases. This is a phase 2 effort, which will widen the project, has been demonstrated through King's Charter Drive. We have a phase 3 beginning development, which will continue the widening onto Slide Hill Road. So I wanted you to know that the whole corridor is planned for improvement over the next 10 or so years, and will bring a much needed improvement to the area, which was really part of our plan and growth and development plan. I have a number of staff here to assist me this afternoon, a number of county staff. So if you have comments on your cards, raise your hand, and someone will pick those up. We also have our design consultants here from Timmons Engineers. Brian Copeland is with us this evening to also answer any questions. When we're done just going through the questions, we've got a couple of mapped versions of the corridor plan land here, one up front, one in the rear, and we're happy to take some time individually for those who want a little more attention just to ask detailed questions about your particular setting. So certainly that'll be part of tonight's meeting. Take a few minutes with you there. I think we're taking comments through the 13th. So through May the 13th, you don't have to have all your comments tonight. If you want to follow up, as Mr. Kelly Wiesick said, we're happy to take your comments. This is the easiest time for us to make changes and recognize things that we might have otherwise missed. So that's why we're out in the community at what is known as a concept phase, so we can put it out here, get your comments, and filter that information. I doubt at the end of the day we're going to make everybody happy, but that's our goal at the onset. So with that, I'm going to start on a few of the questions that we've heard so far tonight. I'll read those and then we will go from there. But the first one here is Atlee Station Village, across from Charter Gate Drive. You took away a slow down exit lane to enter. Why? This is not safe. Okay, Terry, if you can go back to our first slide. I don't think we took away, if your intent was to say we took away your right turn lane into Atlee Station Village, I do not believe that is removed from the plan element. So, actually, okay, we are taking that. What is it? Stand corrected. There's one there, so I think that's something certainly, we have to look at the warrants for it. I was mistaken for another intersection, so I think it's a comment we're gonna put down, take a close look at in terms of how it functions, and give you a complete answer. I also didn't mention, we will write all of these comments down on a sheet of paper and have answers to all those questions published as part of our online information. So we will make sure they're all posted comprehensively so you get their detailed answers. A lot of comments on Atlee Station Village in particular, and I think I understand. One question, and we addressed this earlier, was why was a meeting held here at Hannibal High School? I think we addressed that. It was really due to availability and trying to provide a comfortable space for the folks that wanted to come out tonight. There's only right turn exit from the Atlee Station Village. Can 2 through lanes headed east be reduced to 1 and the other a right turn lane only to give residents leaving an acceleration lane to merge into traffic flow? Also need left turn only lane from Forest Patch lane to reduced rear end accidents. Okay, this intersection, you know, I'm sure we'll continue to have dialogue. We've really got to make some choices here to improve overall safety. And with the very, very large number of movements from King's Charter Drive relative to a very small number of movements from Atlee Station Village, if this concept, the continuous T is chosen to provide the most safety for everyone involved, recognizing there is an alternative path to make that left turn out of Atlee Station Village. But again, we're here to talk to you about that and go over it, but also go back and take a close look at the right turn lane. VDOT's policies, I don't believe, typically provide for the acceleration lanes. Brian, can you help me with that question?
Yes, since there's a southbound acceleration lane being provided, we wouldn't be able to provide northbound acceleration likewise because the southbound left turn lane into King's Charter is being provided in that same envelope of paper.
Please join us in the back over one of these tables where we're done, where we can more intimately discuss your particular concerns, and that way I think we can get a better handle than just a question here. We'll elaborate in final comments. Find no left turn lane from Berry Pond Lane. If no left turn lane will be maintained Berry Pond Lane, since there will be a higher. Sorry, I can't read the last word. Basically, Forest Patch Road will be made more difficult, acceptable to above. Will there be traffic light at King's Charter and Berry Pond intersection? Like Mr. Canales mentioned, there will not be a traffic signal at King's Charter and Atlee Station Village, and this is primarily because we don't meet VDOT's criteria for a traffic signal, so they won't allow us to put a traffic signal at this location. That's driven in large part to a very small number of movements from Atlee Station Village itself. So that's what's pushed us to look at these other alternative intersections. Sir, I think, and certainly I think you can address it. And I know we have a number of participants from Atlee Station Village here this evening. I believe a very brief meeting up here where we can have a little intimate discussion, but even perhaps a follow-up at Atlee Station Village where we come out to the community and talk with you all more individually would be appropriate, so that we can kind of help you understand how we got where we are, but make sure also we fully understand some of your concerns. Okay, so we'll make sure we follow up, but let's get your information here before we separate. Thank you. Why is there an idea for Atlee Road roundabout? This is a disaster in Florida, lots of accidents. Okay, so we know some people have that view on roundabouts, and you know, my most rewarding professional achievement, I think, is when we built the roundabout in Studley and Little Point. There was a lot of concern and apprehension by a lot of folks about that roundabout. You know, I'm sad to say that the one loss of life that occurred at that intersection would not have occurred if we hadn't been able to build that roundabout just a few years earlier. It has functioned fantastically by all accounts. I have received calls and comments from some of my most elderly and long-existing residents, I won't name in the county, but they've been not shy about letting us know concerns in the past, but called and said, look, they just love it. We built one in Creighton and Cole Harbor, very high traffic volumes, and it has functioned very well. And I don't believe there's been a single accident of record at the Creighton and Cole Harbor so far, at least not that we were recently able to find. So I think we acknowledge this one brings with it some complexities. I have observed personally a number of roundabouts. One in Florida, if you've ever been to Clearwater, Florida, there's a very large multi-lane roundabout that goes right into Clearwater across a bridge. It enters every afternoon. That thing bogs down because of too much traffic, and but it clears itself. Even in failure mode, it clears itself better than a signal. And I think given the unique traffic patterns of our schools, particularly those morning AM peak congestion hours, it will provide a much safer alternative when we go to 4 lanes. And it also provides for that without having a traffic guard risking their life in the middle of the intersection. So bear with us, and I ask you to study it. And again, if there are particular segments that would like us to come out and visit you to go over the function in a more detailed way, we can certainly do that. But we think a particular alternative will be a great addition to that intersection, particularly in light that we cannot have a signal there.
So we know that Giles is not completely built out yet, but we went ahead and did the signal justification study. So were the numbers used the today number for Giles, or was it the eventual build out for Giles? And if it was today's number, what percentage is that? Because I had some conversations with planning, and I think with you a little while back, and we were saying we were trying to wait until Giles was a little further on to do the signal justification study for timing purposes. So can you address that, please?
So I don't misstep, I'm going to ask Brian to address the details.
Yes, to answer your question, we took traffic counts at the intersection, we grew them to the opening year, but also accounting for the fact that it's not fully built out. So we used a full build out of the projected volume in addition to the background volume, which is the current count routes plus any additional route growth that can be expected on top of the build out. So it's kind of, it's putting one set of numbers on top of another set of numbers, just on top of another set of numbers to build that number up as much as we can. Now, one thing I will say in terms of getting VDOT to warrant a traffic signal, they generally will not allow you to look so far out, like 30 years out, to get the volume threshold that you need to warrant a signal. The best case scenario is that they let you look just a few years out to the opening year of the project. So while this project, the design year, Terry say, 2050 being the design year, they won't let us use numbers that are that far out, but they will let us use numbers that are 2028 opening year volumes. But to answer your question generally, yes, it's the full build out of the entire development, plus an additional annual growth rate that's added on top of that for the 6 years that we have until the
I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to go back and discuss this with these gentlemen because I want to make sure Giles was approved prior to my taking office, but it was my understanding that a signal would eventually be justified there. So we need to figure out where that disconnect is, that the numbers that 1 year said it would be justified, and then now it would not be. So thank you. I just wanted everybody to understand we'll get that a little closer.
Can I finish the written comments? I certainly, glad to answer them separately, but out of respect for both people that sent comments, I'd like to get through those and then we'll open it up. Please explain what keeps people from changing lanes in the roundabout, okay? And how does the roundabout not just jam up during school, start in the traffic lights on either side, okay? I think, Terry, if you could pull that image back up, maybe we can start to address it. I don't think we're representing that the roundabout won't jam up just like the morning traffic does, okay? But it will, we do feel confident that it'll function. When you get some of the morning traffic, it's just more cars than you can put out there for roadway, okay? But some of the key considerations are the slip lanes for right turns and then directional lanes, entering those particular areas that you're intended to go to. So whether you're headed to Atlee High School or coming out of Jones Farms, it's much more aligned. Now we'll take learning the roundabout to most effectively navigate it. That is the characteristic of the roundabouts. But even with traffic jammed up, let's say, folks are parked along the side of the road, it's backing up. Our observation on roundabouts are people generally speaking at those low speeds, give and take, let people in and out, and that makes the roundabout rotate and cars clear themselves. I've personally seen that in a number of roundabouts. The one I mentioned in Clearwater was the most excessive example I've seen, where it's literally hundreds of cars backed up for a few hours, but it clears itself and continues to function. Stoplight will do the same thing, but stoplights are actually known to do it worse. They start backing things up, and you sit there no matter what for that cycle, or that light. VDOT can try to optimize it, but that's the net effect. And I'd also invite you to consider the recently completed project on Slime Hill Road, okay? One of the things we've seen pretty well there is just because of thinning out that traffic on dual lanes now, there are much greater breaks in traffic flow, particularly at your other intersections. So because of that additional capacity, you're able to get more cars through the system and move things faster. Yeah, there is more detailed information on the roundabout. As Terry says, we're happy to sit down and look at design details. If you want to, again, do that separately, and contact us, but Terry is our project manager. Will the speed limit be lowered? Is one question. We don't anticipate beyond what's out there today. There'll still be school zones in effect. And our design speed limit for the main roadway is 45. The, design characteristics of the curves and everything else are for that speed limit, and, that's what we anticipate the majority to be posted at, but you'll still have your school zoning limits, which will apply to school areas, hours. Will there be a crosswalk to Busley, a light roundabout, but I live in Giles, and have almost been hit several times trying to go across Halifax to the other side. I would like a sidewalk to be on both sides of Halifax to Stone Horse, and then have crosswalk for fast-moving vehicles aren't turning into Giles neighborhood. Okay. We're showing currently, we have a crosswalk there at the roundabout to go across. Right. Yeah. Right, and VDOT's not inclined to give us those types of mid-block crosswalks. I mean, that's the reality. They want them either at a controlled intersection like the roundabout or down at the signalized intersection. We realize there's a fair amount of space there, but it's just very difficult to design a safe crosswalk in a mid-block situation. Yes, there's sidewalks or sidewalk on the, which we're calling the lower segment, and a pedestrian pathway, which is a 10-foot combination bike ped facility on the school side. Okay, again, I invite you to come up and let's look at it in detail after. Once again, once completed, can the speed limit be reduced to 35 miles per hour? VDOT does allow us to go through study principles, but essentially, that's what the design effort is. You know, it would be very unlikely that VDOT would allow us to drop the speed limit below what it's being designed for. And so I think the chances are slim to none to actually have it posted 35. I'm not saying it's non-existent, but there have to be some really unusual conditions to demonstrate themselves to allow us to lower the speed limit below the design speed limit. Will the traffic analysis and the related material be posted on the county page? Certainly, we can post the traffic analysis out there on the page so that it can be accessible. Yes, Mr. Mills? Okay. Please comment on the roundabout safety of the south left crossing over north beyond through Lincoln. Can you help me with that one, Brian? If I state it again, please comment on the roundabout safety of the south left crossing over.
Southbound lane coming, go into that high school, get 3/4 of the way around the roundabout. Right there.
Yes, and I think, again, the concepts on the roundabout are the folks in the roundabout have the right of way. The folks that are trying to enter the right of way have to yield to traffic already in the roundabout. Okay, so, it's not really that dissimilar than what we have at Studley and Mill Point. When folks come into the intersection, once you're in the intersection, you have the right of way, you have to yield before you can enter. And of course, go across with, amounts to the beginnings of 2 lanes to head back north. So again, Mr. Nelson, happy to sit down and look at the alternatives. What are the plans to reduce the additional noise pollution along the Chickahominy Oaks subdivision? Now, part of the requirements of the project will require that we analyze noise conditions both pre and post project, and then take any appropriate action if there's a demonstrated need. So, Brian, I'll ask you to maybe just briefly discuss noise analysis and how it affects a project like this, and the likelihood of affecting Chickahominy Oaks.
As part of receiving federal funds for the project, we have to follow the National Environmental Protection Act, or NEPA, which requires us to study all different levels of environmental impact that the project may have. One of those things is studying the noise impact for the adjacent properties for any project that expands capacity, just like this does. So we have HMH, which is a noise sub-consultant on our team. They've done noise studies for various other projects around the county. Some of you may, on the board, already been notified, but they are on their way out and actually will be out, I think sometime this month, to take existing decibel level readings in the backyards of some of the residences that are kind of considered to be in highly sensitive areas of the project. So they'll take that information, they'll take the design information about what side of the road we're widening on, how much we widen the road, what are the traffic counts, and really put that all into a modeling database that will then determine what is the expected increase in decibel level that the project, the residences, and the different noise-sensitive areas may experience in the project. And then that will be disseminated in a report that gets reviewed by the county and VDOT, and that will also be available to the public when it's available. So we are in the process of study.
Okay, will the 2 improved intersections include streetlights? And I don't know, we typically do have to take a look at particular roundabouts and whether lighting them is important. And I don't believe we've actually accomplished that yet, have we? Right, we have. So we would expect that lighting would come about in the roundabout area. I don't believe lighting would apply to the other continuous T or signalized intersection in Honey Meadows, but in the roundabout, it would require lighting, is our understanding. So why does the design not include a roundabout at Honey Meadows? And my technical people address that again, Brian, but Honey Meadows did warrant a signal, and that was why we achieved the signal that is at that location. There were some unique traffic patterns that were created to take advantage of that signal, including that slip road, if you will, behind the middle school to come back to Honey Meadows. And I have to assume that I'll let the consultant address that it continued to meet the signal requirements that are imposed by VDOT.
So as you know, as we talked about earlier, getting a signal warranted through VDOT to just approve a new traffic signal is very, very difficult. One other thing to point out about the signal warrant process is that even if you do meet the volume thresholds, it is still very hard even after that to convince VDOT to allow you to put a traffic signal in. They make you go through an analysis of all other alternative intersectional options before they will even let you consider putting traffic signals. So even traffic signals, even when warranted, are still very difficult to get VDOT on board line with the
In terms of,
It did. Every year, it seems to be getting harder and harder to get traffic signals warranted in the Commonwealth. Just because of the level of maintenance, perpetual maintenance that is coming upon VDOT to maintain them. And the fact that roundabouts have shown so favorable in terms of reducing the frequency and severity of the crashes that are experienced when compared to their traffic signal counterparts. But in terms of your question about why wasn't Honey Meadows considered for a roundabout, a couple different reasons. One reason is flexibility. So there's a loop road that goes around the back side of the school. So sometimes trucks can navigate through the signalized intersection a little better, so it does give that flexibility. It also provides controlled signalized option for pedestrian crossings. So when you actually go up to that signal, pedestrians will be able to have a fully signal controlled crossing to get access to the school, which is a different mode of access across the roundabout, so it does provide some flexibility with pedestrian access. And then, just like I said, it's so difficult to get a signal warranted, and it would mainly feel counterproductive to take away that signal after we were successfully got that signal warranted just a few years ago.
Our objective is to keep the budget as low as we can, and typically we do intersections that have issues with our safety operational issues. I know they're not performing well operationally for what we expected, and with the crash diagram there, there's no defined safety issue that was intersected. So in lieu of spending additional $3 million to install roundabout, we're leaving the existing condition the way it is. So it really comes down to purpose and need a project, and we're still thinking something we don't like to see.
Right, that concludes the written comments. We'll take a few from the floor.
Quick comment about roundabout. For me, kind of a surprise that I'm a big proponent of roundabout. If you can kind of travel the real one of the concerns I have though, not Creighton, by the way, Creighton, you folks at VDOT are able to do a good job. And a lot of locals complain about Creighton from the city intersection to the roundabout. I'm sure the folks that live there now, so I know it's the time with heavy traffic at 5 o'clock, as long as in the morning. But one of the concerns I have is the right turn separation, the white triangles, are they painted or are they raised surfaces?
Those are largely painted, and there are some markers that are inside.
Right? Now, coming from Warren, maybe to the right. Actually, coming from the east side going west. Some folks may say coming from the south side going north.
Well, those gray areas are raised medians.
You have that sliver on the right side, is that painted or is that a raised item?
They're painted. The reason why they paint them is being in Virginia, we have snow and we have ice. Some climates, they will provide a raise in there, but we don't have the ability to do it.
Because I've seen roundabouts where there may be a quarter of an inch raise,
Yes,
and that's the worst thing you can do.
exactly. And that's what we're deciding. So, now, we've put some extra all across the country on this. Not just looking at Virginia, we really reached out to see what the best treatments are. We'll come up with it painted on both sides with markers in the middle. So it really gives you a really good target for staying in your own lane. Doesn't prevent them from coming out of the lane. But
And sir, there's some medians involved too, so if you could come up and we could just go over your concerns so we fully understand it, be helpful. And sir, you got another comment on that?
Same issue. How do residents move to China to want to go to high school in the morning? Yes. So they're from,
Right.
they have to cross all those lanes in order to do that.
well, we have an operational analysis that shows how each of those movements perform. We want to have to pull this up for you all afterwards, unless it's something we can look at.
the last thing we want to do is build something that's not going to work, so we're spending a lot of time looking at alternatives and how they function, but these things, more and more, have a proven record of functioning pretty well. Yes, ma'am.
No, man, no, it's a great comment. So again, it's a combination, there's two things here that we can point to.
We've given this a lot of thought, a lot of discussion. Being that there's 2 lanes on the entry, on the southbound entry to the roundabout, we're going to provide the RRFBs, which is a rapid flashing beacon. So again, it's like you see an Ashland there, whenever you want to cross the roadway, push a button. Lights blink, everything lights up, signals come on with a flashing yellow, and cars are supposed to stop for that. They then proceed to the, what we refer to as refuge island, which is a minimum of 6 foot by 6 foot. In this case, we're going to try and make it a little wider because of the fact, like you mentioned, there are volumes of students potentially crossing. So they can wait there, again, push another button, look at the opposite direction of traffic, which should be stopped or cautioned by these flashing beacons, and then we'll proceed to cross that way. So it's a combination of 2 things. They've done that in some locations up in Northern Virginia. I've actually had a chance to work up there for a while. The problem you have is it eats up a lot of right-of-way because you have to have switchbacks. Everything has to be ADA compliant. So in order to get something that's 20 feet in the air, which is a minimum what you're designed for, you're now switching back and forth to get these kids up to a height to cross. Same way with the opposite side. It takes up a lot of right-of-way. You're probably looking at, $1 million plus to build some type of facility like that. So, but that's something you want to provide a comment to, or be more happy to address it and put it in writing so that it does meet your questions. That's what we're here to do, is to answer questions and give you our best advice and data that supports what we're trying to do.
There are some raised medians, but there's also some turn lanes. I believe at the middle school, though, it's all controlled. We're sticking with, even further down, I think she's talking about here. Well, this is it. Yeah.
This one mentioned that we refer to our youth right here, the facility structure. So you come out of the middle school, you have to come out, and make a right and make a left, make a left and make a right. You see that, the middle intersection, you do a U-turn. Are you familiar with the area?
Yes. And they will not be able to legally make a U-turn there. Okay, so, well, I have to, but now those are reserved for left ends only. So you'll see a number of left turn lanes and a right turn lane into Giles. But it should be much more difficult for them to make an illegal turn. And we're providing them an opportunity to make a legal turn at the light if they want to turn around and go back around. So, understood. Again, we can look at the layout in detail. Yes, ma'am. Yes, in fact, I've spent a lot of time out there over the years, but I will say, and I think, when you look at a situation like a school entry and release, there's nothing really like it, and we're designing a roadway system to accommodate, all 24 hours of the day. There are some peak hours that there are gonna be school impacts, that's just a reality. This design will be so far above what we have now that it'll make a huge difference in the flow of the traffic, but there will still be potentially some folks that decide to use that wide shoulder to the north to pull off and pick up kids off the highway. But we're sort of leaving that in the plan so that, there's not a conflict there. With that,
I just wanted to also follow up with you to let you know that Mark Beckett meeting Mark, who is the principal of the middle school. There is an initiative also to get some safer routes to school grant, and so the folks who are involved in that, and there is a connection back through VDOT with the safer schools. They are also evaluating this plan as presented and are providing us with comments, because again, and we have all been out there to look at how this transpires and to try to make sure that those kids have a much safer way to get from point A to point B across that road. So that feedback is very important, and I thank you for making that comment.
we also communicate with the principals, certainly the principal and assistant principal, at the middle school have been engaged with us, and that was part of what brought some of the new route behind the school, their ideas on how to control that traffic flow, so they'll continue to have input. But with that, I'd like to invite anyone that wants to come to either, the front location or the rear location to look individually at some of the details, so that we can, answer fully any of your specific questions, and also we want to follow up with Atlee Village in the future. I'd like to make that connection so we can also close that loop. But please reach out to us. This is just the beginning of the process, and we'll invite you to talk to us and express issues so that we can make sure they're addressed in the design. So thank you very much for coming out tonight, and please share the information with your neighbors and others so that they can go to our website and also learn about the project. Again, thank you very much from behalf of Hanover County.